Hi, I'm Lhadon, and this is Our Nation, news and analysis on the state of Tibet. Today is Tuesday, March 3rd. I'm coming to you from Hong Kong, and Tendor's not able to join us today. I should call it My Nation. We were having technical difficulties, so New York is not going to join this show, but I'll try and do as good a job as Tendor would. We have a few stories for you today. One on an update on Tape, the Tibetan monk who self-immolated in Amdongaba in eastern Tibet. The Chinese authorities now admit the incident happened, or at least that he self-immolated. Number two story for you, Oasis banned from China. The rock band Oasis has had two shows in China canceled. And number three, the Chinese government releases a white paper on 50 years of what they call democratic reform in Tibet. So going right away to the update on Tape, the Chinese state media, Xinhua, issued a report yesterday saying China refutes shooting Tibetan man who attempts to set himself alight. The Chinese authorities refuted Monday that police had shot a young Tibetan who attempted to set himself on fire Friday in the southwestern Sichuan province, as was claimed by some Tibet independence groups. The 24-year-old man, identified as Tashi, also known as Tape, was a Buddhist student at Kirti Monastery in the Aba County of the Tibetan Chang Autonomous Prefecture of Aba. He attempted to set himself alight using inflammables while holding a portrait of the Dalai Lama and a snow lion flag in token of Tibet independence on a street in the Aba County seat at 1:38 p.m. Friday. When local police saw that, they immediately put out the fire and sent the young man to hospital. Some Tibet independence groups said Tashi was shot by police, but that was totally fabricated, the authorities said. Tashi is in stable condition now, and local authorities are investigating the incident. Local monks and residents are averse to Tashi's action. They believe he was deluded by the Dalai clique, and such an action went against doctrines of Tibetan Buddhism. So this is the official line on Tape's self-immolation. Of course, they don't admit that he was shot. We didn't expect that they would admit it. Interesting to note, though, that this is a change in position for the official response from China. Originally, and the Associated Press just reported this, originally when they called into the area to find out what happened, like any journalist would, in any place where there is a news report of a news incident, they called, and what they got was this. An official surnamed Nong at the Communist Party's propaganda office in Aba County said Monday that no such thing had happened. Another official at the party's propaganda office in Aba Prefecture, which oversees the area, said he had not heard about the incident. So just as recently as Monday, yesterday, they were denying it, and now they're admitting it. They're telling, at least they're admitting half the story. They're not saying that he was shot. We have numerous eyewitnesses, and of course, from the Tibetan side, it was Tibetan supporters and people in exile who first put this story to the media and to the world, because we were getting it from eyewitnesses in Tibet, multiple eyewitnesses, all whose stories matched up, and in the end said that Tape was actually, there was 3 shots fired by the local police at the crossroads of the main market there in Amdongaba town, and that at least one of those shots hit him. So it's really difficult to get information out, but I think the Tibetan side has done, its very best, and now we're finally seeing the Chinese authorities admit at least part of the story. It is a mixed feeling knowing that Tape may be alive and recovering in the hospital, because I think that many Tibetans, of course, fear for what will become of him if he lives. He's already suffered so much, and now if he actually has, if he is alive, it's both good news, and it also makes one feel, certainly makes me feel conflicted, just because of how much suffering now he'll have to go through, because the authorities have labeled him a political activist, and we know what happens to Tibetans, especially the monks who dare to engage in such bold political demonstrations. So we'll keep you updated on that story. Just a quick bit here, silly story about Oasis, the rock band, being banned from China. They were scheduled to play 2 shows, I guess in April in Beijing and Shanghai. And now this headline from E! Online says, "No wonder wall behind Great Wall. China cans Oasis gig." The Chinese government unexpectedly scrapped 2 concerts of the British rockers because they deemed the shows unsuitable for political reasons. At issue, Chinese officials were unhappy upon learning the Wonderwall band's mastermind, Noel Gallagher, had once played a 5-song set at a 1997 Free Tibet benefit in the U.S. That was, of course, the series of Tibetan Freedom concerts. That's the one from Randall's Island, I believe, in New York. Students for Free Tibet, we were involved on the sort of awareness-raising, grassroots organizing side of those concerts. Many of the top musicians, rock bands, and artists in the world played those shows over a series of like 5 years. And it's just interesting, the Chinese authorities, their officials have finally figured this out, and clearly they are afraid that Oasis may, at this sensitive time in this year of anniversaries, do something to embarrass them. Like Bjork saying last year, declare independence, Tibet. So they're obviously afraid that maybe Oasis will do a similar thing. I think it's just, it's kind of ridiculous and pathetic. It's a Western rock band, playing a show in China, not likely to spark a revolution, but I think this shows the extent to which the Chinese authorities are paranoid, afraid, insecure in their rule of what might happen, of ideas, they don't want freedom of speech, thought, or expression in China. That's dangerous to them, and certainly they are insecure over their rule in Tibet because it's illegitimate and they know it. But they've now banned Oasis, so we'll keep you updated which other bands, international artists, don't make it into China in the next year because of the Beijing government's insecurity. Finally, I want to talk about China's white paper on what they say is 50 years of democratic reform in Tibet. A white paper is like the Chinese government's official thinking or line on any important issue. They've put out a lot of white papers on Tibet over the years, and this one is, in a way, their response to all of the attention that the 50th anniversary of the Tibetan Uprising in Lhasa is getting. The international media, the world is paying attention to this sort of important symbolic anniversary. And so their response is this white paper where they talk about 3 things. Old Tibet, a society of feudal serfdom under theocracy. 2, momentous democratic reform in Tibet. And 3, tremendous historic changes over the past half-century. And of course, they go on about all the usual things. They brought democratic reform, Tibetans are happier, Tibetans were slaves, suffering under the old society, the Dalai Lama bringing great, suffering to all the people in Tibet, and the Chinese, Communist Party were the liberators. Just start that bit again. A little call there to the room. Anyway, so aside from the usual that's in this white paper, interesting to note, and Reuters has done a piece, a lot of the media has picked up on this, China blames Tibet trouble on Western forces, Western governments, basically saying that China's troubles in Tibet have been stoked by crisis-stricken Western forces seeking to divide and weaken the emerging power and distract voters from their own economic woes, the Chinese government said on Monday. This is this Reuters report. And it just basically talks, the Chinese authorities just lash out and say that everything that's happened over the last year is the result of Western forces who are conspiring to undermine China's sovereignty by supporting the so-called Tibet issue, which is not an issue of rights, it's not an issue of independence, it's simply a plot by foreign powers to break up China. And I don't really have much to say on that. I think it's quite obvious what a ridiculous thing that is, and Tendor and I will talk more about it in the coming days. But nothing but paranoia, insecurity, and transparent madness from Beijing these days. So that's it for Our Nation News and Analysis on the State of Tibet. See you soon.